Hello and welcome to all of you that are joining us for the Utah County Watershed Operations Plan EA. We are glad that you've been able to take some time out of your evening tonight. My name is Diane Olson. I am with the project team and I will be facilitating the meeting tonight. Before we get too into the items, I wanted to just let you know this is what we have planned is to provide a brief presentation on the project concepts and what is proposed. So I've got a few members from the county and our co-sponsor cities that will help do that, as well as NRCS, which is the Natural Resource Conservation Service, that will walk through what these projects are, why you got the mailer in your mailbox or were notified otherwise. And we'll go through all of that, and then we will leave time for questions and answers, because that's really the intent for tonight, is to give you enough information so that you can provide comments and provide feedback through this scoping process. So with that, I will get our team introduced. So like I said, this is the Utah County Watershed Plan Operations Plan EA. Through all of these plans, we always include an element of including the public and making sure that you are aware of what is proposed so we can get your feedback. If you are newer to Zoom, there are just a few simple functions that you'll need tonight to participate. If you, for some reason you have an unstable internet connection because people are home watching Netflix, you can switch to your phone audio. You can do that down where you see the mute button. There you have options for how to connect. You can also share your video or hide that. It's up to you. We do ask, if you don't mind, if you haven't already updated your name, that will help us distinguish if when you have any questions or items that you'd like to address, we can help make sure that we've answered them and we're communicating with you directly. There, you can see everyone that's in the meeting by clicking on the participant panel over here. And then the most important thing is, as questions come up, use the chat function. We'll want you to send that directly to Jennifer Fowler. She's our tech support tonight. So as the team goes through this presentation and we're covering all of this material, as you have a question arise, go ahead and shoot it over to us in the chat. And then as we get to the question and answer portion, we will review those and make sure that we address your questions. Questions tonight are intended to inform you. They won't be considered official public comments, although all the feedback received is appreciated and will be taken into account by the team. But we do want any official public comments in this process to be submitted through the methods that we'll mention later. So through email or a written letter, or we have a public comment portal. So that's just worth noting. With that, I would like to turn the time over to Utah County, and Glenn Tanner is here with Utah County to welcome you all here tonight, and then we'll introduce the rest of this project team. Glenn, you're still unmuted. There you go.
Hear me now. Okay. Hey, I appreciate everybody's attendance and those that are logged on with us. I hope that this is a meeting that gives you some information to help guide you through the process of providing input. This is what this meeting's for, is to help us provide the opportunity for the public to provide input as to the project, which is correlating with the 2018 Bald Mountain and Pole Creek fire. These projects are to help reduce the potential flooding or debris flows that potentially come after a fire. So that's what these projects are coordinating with, and tonight is an opportunity to hear a little bit about them, look at some of the areas that we're going to be evaluating, and mostly to hopefully connect with the public, to provide us some input and some feedback as to concerns or issues you might be aware of that we've not thought of. So appreciate everybody being here, and especially appreciate the sponsors and the design teams for putting this together.
Thanks, Glenn. So, Utah County is the main sponsor for this effort. We do have co-sponsors, including, Payson City, we have Travis Jockinson here. Elk Ridge City is a sponsor, Salem City, Spanish Fork City, Woodland Hills, I don't see anyone, but also Santa Quin City. We have Norm Beagley here. So, yep, gave us a wave. NRCS is the lead agency on this. So all of this operates under NRCS and is funded by NRCS. So with us tonight is Derek Hamilton, and he'll have a moment to introduce himself later. Also, Leslie Warda is part of the NRCS team. Then there are a few engineering firms involved in this, of which that's who I am with. JUB Engineers is the primary engineering firm. And then we also, and from JUB, we have Ahmed Salah here. There he is, a wave. Myself and Jennifer Fowler are also with JUB, and we help through the public involvement side of things. So when there are processes such as this, we help with these meetings. We have the phone number where you can reach us to help ask questions, and we'll connect you with the all these members of the project team. Jones and DeMille Engineering, we have Ted Mickelson. He's the lead engineer from that side. And then Jenna Jorgensen, she is leading on the environmental phase. So we have those team members. We also have, and I'm looking, I don't know if he's been able to join us. We have CRS engineers who is also part of the project team. So that's where we are at for our project team. With that, I'm going to turn the time over to Derek Hamilton, and he'll walk you through NRCS and their role in this project.
Great. Thanks, Diane. Thanks everyone for joining tonight. Hopefully everyone was able to connect virtually. I know a year ago, I didn't know exactly what buttons to push, but it seems like I know exactly where to go now. If you did have neighbors or family members or loved ones or others that couldn't connect for one reason or another, and you can help them out in the future, this is being recorded. So you can access the website after the fact and take a look and watch the web or this presentation on your own time. So if you need to help others, please do so. Or if the project team can help, please contact a member. Again, my name is Derek Hamilton. I'm Water Resources Coordinator out of the state office here with NRCS. I'm one of a number of staff with NRCS that help administer this, what we call the PL 566 program. Just for folks that aren't familiar, NRCS stands for Natural Resources Conservation Service. We're within, of course, the U.S. Department of Ag. And again, prior to the mid-90s, NRCS was known as the Soil Conservation Service. So if that helps some folks with some history there. So again, why is NRCS involved? Some folks on the call may be familiar with NRCS on-farm, planning and conservation practices with private landowners, and that's been the exposure across the West. And a lot of examples would be, converting from flood to sprinkler irrigation, utilizing cover crops, no-till farming practices, converting to wildlife-friendly fencing, conservation practice standards that again are implemented at the on-farm level. But NRCS also supports communities and local landowners with the Watershed program. And there's a few programs that are available for folks to use and communities to use. The first is, the EWP program, and some folks in the call may be familiar. I know in the area, there were some measures implemented, and constructed here recently to address some of these imminent threats to life and property immediately after the fire events. The Watershed Operations Program is the program that we're dealing with on this project particularly now. You'll hear it called as the PL 566 program. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And then the other watershed program within NRCS is the rehab program. And of course, that's tied back to support the Watershed Operations Program. So again, why are we all here at this meeting? This is to notify the public, that Utah County applied for and received NRCS funding for this planning phase to develop what we call a watershed plan environmental assessment. There's federal funding involved. NRCS is funding this planning phase at 100%. We are the lead federal agency for compliance with the National Environmental Policy Act, and others on the call will speak to that here in a few minutes. The program is authorized by what we call Public Law 83-566. And of course, you can see it's a mouthful there, the Watershed Protection and Flood Prevention Act. Been around since the 50s. We shorten it up, and you'll hear it across the nation referred to as PL 566 projects or watershed plans. This act allows NRCS to provide technical and financial assistance to eligible sponsors or units of government to plan, design, and construct works of improvements. Of course, these works of improvements, they must meet the general PL 566 program purposes, and then the authorized project purposes also must be met as well. These general purposes are on this slide, of course. Preventing damage from floodwater, of course, and erosion and sediment. That's really the flagship of the act and the program. But of course, good planning of land and water use is certainly something that's a general purpose that the program intends to address. Next slide, please. As far as the authorized purposes, this is where you get a little better feel for really what projects may develop as a result of this long-term planning effort. Again, flood prevention is something that's very important to the program, and it's really it's really a focus of the program, and that's reflected in the 100% cost share associated with that purpose. Not to get too much into the weeds on such, but the cost share and the funding is associated by project purpose. And again, flood prevention or any measures associated with flood prevention are funded at 100%, and that's at the construction level. That's funded at 100% by the NRCS. Also, we'll see ag water management, of course, here in Utah. We're seeing a lot of watershed plans include project measures. And this, again, we're looking to modernize these aging irrigation delivery systems, many of which are approaching 75, 100 years old. And so there's some inefficiencies, and there's a lot of issues associated with some of these older delivery systems that we can improve on. A number of authorized purposes as well, though, that can be included and considered, and that's where at this stage we're just at the planning effort, and we're really looking at what are the interests from the public agencies in other purposes, other projects that could again result in public recreation, any M&I water, any type of water quality improvements. Again, this is a planning level effort, and after approximately a year after receiving input and working on alternatives, we'll have eventually a preferred alternative that will certainly, from what I'm looking at and what I understand on this project, it'll address a few of these purposes. Just a few other things just to add. You know, some of these eligible sponsors, folks want to know exactly what eligible sponsors, these local aid agencies, tribal governments, water conservancy districts, and then drainage districts in other parts of the countries. Some of the responsibilities of the sponsor are permit acquisition, any real property rights, whether that be acquisition or via easement. And again, there's obviously an O&M commitment into the future with this planning effort. So again, just the program funds sponsored at 3 different phases. We're in the very first phase, so we're for funding, and they receive such, and we are at that stage, and we expect that to take about 2 years. And if authorized funding is available, it takes about a year, and then again, if funding's available and approved, we would then move into the construction phase. So this is a two-year process potentially before we could even start thinking about construction. So it is more of a planning effort than just getting machinery out immediately. So it's important for folks to understand that. And just finally, again, some information on, nationally. This watershed program, it's been around since the mid-50s within NRCS, and we have 2,000 plus watershed plans with over 10,000 project measures across the country. Here in Utah, there's 17 authorized watershed plans, and this plan is one of approximately 35 that are in this planning phase. So there's lots of traction and momentum. We have a great project team, and thanks for taking some time. And we hope to address any questions tonight, or any concerns you have, we'll consider as we move forward with alternatives. So I guess back over to you, Diane.
Thanks, Derek. Okay, so as Derek mentioned, we're just at the beginning. There is background on what initiated this project. So I'm going to have Ahmed and Ted Nicholson with the engineering team take about 10 minutes and run through fairly quickly what is proposed and what that looks like, where those areas would be. So Ahmed.
Thank you, Diane. Can you hear me? Okay. Thanks everybody for taking time of your Thursday evening here and to learn about the proposed project measures on this project. And thanks to Diane and Glenn and Derek for the introduction. Yes, this is in a response. The reason we're here is in response to the 2018 Pole Creek and Bald Mountain fires. That has affected different parts of Utah County and the co-sponsors, as Diane mentioned earlier. As a kind of quick response to that, there were previous projects. Some of us may be familiar with the emergency watershed protection, the EWP project that was phase 1, if you will, or the first attempt to implement and address these imminent threats on a short-term measures, basically to address the threats within the project schedule and guidelines. So that's the EWP project. There's additional funding on this part of the project, which is the watershed operations, like Derek mentioned, and on that we're happy to be part of a team of engineers between JB engineers, Jones and Mill, and CRS engineers. This is a bigger scale project, and we're happy to take part of that. Next slide, please. So some of the projects that we're done to, again, address imminent threats and immediate ones for short term, already finished and on the ground actually right now. The second part, which is basically more complicated measures that remaining concerns, if you will, more of complicated measures that would require longer process, longer review period, longer environmental regulations. But the erosion, the remaining concerns are basically to address erosion and sediment risks to infrastructure, water supply structures, public and private wildlife and irrigation canals. Next slide, please. Project goals, as you can see, protect communities from high water flow in addition to sediment and debris, reduce the frequency of flood damage to everybody here, residents on the call, residents and critical infrastructure and roads, reduce erosion and catch sediments and debris before it gets to these critical infrastructure, and of course protect water quality and wildlife habitat. Next, please. So you've probably seen this before as part of the notice that you've received, and this is basically a map of proposed project measures to address these threats. As Diane mentioned, the team peers, some of the team, the engineering team, were working on part of the projects and the others. So I just want to talk about some of the projects here for Utah County, unincorporated areas of Utah County, Salem, and Spanish Fork. And as you can see, this is kind of a static map, but we do have another dynamic website that you can actually zoom in and out and see that in relation to properties of interest to you, and see how that is affecting that property of interest. And that is part of the website that Diane had talked about, and she will be talking about some more. And I think if we can share the screen, I can share my screen here with you, and please let me know when you start seeing it.
Yep.
Okay. So again, this is UC Watershed, UtahCountyWatershed.com. That's the website that we have created for you to indicate any concerns that you might have. Again, some information that are here. And as Derek mentioned, a video and additional material will be posted here on this website. As you can see, as you scroll down, there's a map part where you can actually zoom in and zoom out to particular projects, and then post any comments that you have right here, whether it's related to property, design, environmental, or others, and leave your email. And don't forget to submit. This is how we actually get your comment or question. I will go quickly here. There are flood control channels right here by Picayune and Crooked Canyon, straight to Spring Lake. There's also a debris basin right here in Salem City. And then my colleague Ted will be talking about other projects in the Payson, Elk Ridge, and Woodland Hills area. If we fly over literally to Crab Creek, there's some work, basically debris management here, and there's also some bridge protection measures along Nebo Creek in this area. By Thistle, there's channel rehab work and control structure. And further downstream, Spanish Fork Watershed, there will be additional, again, flood control measures through Diamond Fork and downstream through Strawberry water users, some debris management and automated structures. Ted?
Thank you, Ahmed. Again, I just want to thank the public for attending tonight and listening to this, the things that we're looking at as part of this project. And just as a reminder, what we're talking about right now are areas that have been identified as posing some potential threats due to some flooding. And while we're talking about some measures, we're early enough in the project that those measures are not necessarily set. So what we're looking from you are ideas, other concerns you have, thoughts you have on this. This is what we're trying to do, is develop the best approach to these in this planning phase. So with that, I'll talk just a little bit about a couple of them we're working on in kind of the middle part of this county here. We'll start in Woodland Hills, Ahmed. So we're looking in Woodland Hills. The fire is part of the EWP project. We were able to do some mitigation basins and some channelization of some threatening basins. We're going to continue that with another basin that was also impacted by the fire by looking at ways to mitigate and potentially attenuate potential flooding out of that drainage basin to alleviate some added floodwaters that could come down from that debris basin, or that drainage basin. You want to move over to Elk Ridge, Auburn? So we're looking if any of you are from Elk Ridge, you'll know that during the EWP portion of this project, we looked at implementing some measures to attenuate floodwaters that come out of Loafer Canyon. And while we got a few of them implemented, because of some impacts to private property, we weren't able to implement as many as we wanted. So we're going to continue to look at that as part of this plan, look at ways to capture some of the high waters higher in the canyon near some city-owned property, and then convey it in public rights of ways through the canyon and get it safely out of the canyon and down to that debris basin that Ahmed mentioned there in Salem. And then over in Payson, we have a couple areas in Payson we're looking at. We've got a irrigation channel up there, Strawberry. Water users who are in their canal is impacted by burned drainages and brings additional floodwaters and debris into their channel. So we're looking at ways we can improve the hydraulics of the channel and some measures to improve some dam facilities towards the end of that channel. And then we're also looking at Dry Creek as it comes from Payson Canyon. Well, first, as we come down Payson Canyon, there are some debris basins in the canyon. We may look at some increased capacity so that we can capture more of the flow in the canyon to slow it down as it comes through the city. And then as it comes through Dry Creek, we're looking at some measures to improve the hydraulic capacity of Dry Creek as it goes through Payson City there. And then I don't see Joshua on the call yet, but also in Payson, we're looking at some dams that have up near these lakes up here that have basically reached kind of their life. They're in disrepair, and we want to look at maybe rehabbing some of those dams because additional and higher floodwaters could cause some breaching there. So we're looking at some improvements there as well.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, Ahmed, for walking through that and navigating the map. So as Ahmed mentioned, that portal that you saw is available online for you to go and not only view, but also leave a comment. You can also send comments through email or call our team. We're happy to help you with that. So I'm going to turn the time over to Jenna. I would just say, based on that presentation that you just saw as far as the project areas, if questions came up, send them over in the chat over to Jennifer Fowler, and even maybe give an indication of what city or some location that we can associate with that, and we can address those as we get to the next phase. So Jenna, I'm going to turn the time over to you to walk through what this analysis process is all about.
Okay, thanks, Diane. Okay, so we are going to talk about why we're going through this planning phase. And Derek kind of referenced this before, but the NRCS is a federal agency that is providing funding. And when you've got federal funds, you have to comply with Nepa, which is the National Environmental Policy Act. Federal lands, for example, national forest or federal permits, like with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, may also bring these NEPA requirements into play. So luckily, we can combine the NEPA process for multiple agencies and just do it once. And that's the goal that we've got here. Next slide. Okay, so there are two main purposes to NEPA. The first one is to consider the environmental consequences, and the second is to communicate those consequences to the public. Because we've got federal resources involved, whether it's money or lands, those are actually public resources through your taxes or their public lands. And so the public should have the opportunity to weigh in on how their resources are being used. So this isn't just a checkbox in the process. That is the purpose of this process, is to get good collaboration and make sure that your resources are being used in an appropriate manner. Okay, so there's a technical term for this, what we're doing. It's called scoping. It's early, it's open. We want this to be very transparent, and we really do want feedback to help us determine what we're going to consider, what we're going to analyze, and if there are other concerns that need to be addressed. You know, we've got a lot of smart people on the team, but we don't know everything. And there's probably a lot of good knowledge out there in your heads that if you share with us will make the project even better. So this scoping is really an effort to get our collective knowledge working on the project. Okay, so here's an example of some of the issues to consider. We will be considering a pretty robust list. That's a requirement with the program. And just a few of the resources, for example, are air quality, recreation, visual resources. You know, are the measures we're proposing going to change the landscape? Land uses, water resources is obviously a big one here. Cultural resources. There's other federal regulation that we have to comply with for many of these resources too. Economics is a big part of the PL 566. There's a very robust economic analysis, mostly to make sure that your public tax dollars are being spent wisely. So those are just a few things to consider. This is a good summarized outline of the process we're going to follow. So right now we're at the very beginning. We're just initiating the plan, figuring out what the problems are so that we know what to address. After scoping, we'll be collecting data in the field, and the engineers will be developing alternatives to address some of those concerns that we have been notified about. We'll do our analysis according to NEPA procedures, NRCS requirements, Forest Service requirements, all of the relevant laws and regulations. And then we're going to pull all that information into a draft plan environmental assessment. So the draft plan assessment will be a public document. We're going to publish that, and we will have a public meeting when that's published to present the findings as well. And once again, we're going to ask for public comments. We want to make sure that we've done a good job, that we haven't missed something. So this is still another opportunity to provide us feedback and help us make the project better. So like I said, we are in the very beginning. We expect that we'll have that draft EA ready for your review next spring. That's our goal. And then there's a few more review periods and working with the NRCS to get that to final when they can sign the decision. Hopefully, we can acquire funding for the next phase when that draft EA has been published so that we can be working on design concurrently with finishing that NEPA process and just get us closer to requesting construction funding. So right now, we've got a tentative construction date of spring of 2023. So like Derek said, about 2 years. And then just to summarize the real highlights of this public involvement, right now we are in the public scoping period. This is set for 30 days. We would really like to get your comments in a timely manner so that we can address them proactively. So please don't wait. If you get them in this comment period, we will consider them. They'll be part of the official record, and we will disclose how we address them. That draft Plan EA will have a 45-day comment period. We want to make sure you've got time to actually review the document, and we'll fit the meeting in after 30 days. And again, there will be opportunity for questions and to provide comments. And then we hope to have everything finalized and signed in the fall of 22 and be well underway on engineering design. So just some ideas to help you think through what kind of comment you could make. Here's some example questions. Are there concerns with these locations and some of the conceptual designs that we've presented? You know, hopefully we've been coordinating with stakeholders and are aware of the concerns, but that doesn't mean we didn't miss something, so let us know. Are there other environmental concerns that you are concerned about? Let us know. If you have ideas to reduce impacts, and that may be more relevant after the draft EA. Is there any controversy? We're not looking to make controversy, but we would like to know if there is any surrounding this project so that we can address it proactively. We have reached out to other agencies, so we want to make sure that we are compliant with all the other environmental laws. But again, we're limited to what we know, so if there's something you know that we might not, let us know. When does the decision need to be made? So you've seen the schedule. We've laid that out following the NRCS process, but if there are other considerations, that would be good to know. We know that flooding is a concern, and that's very time sensitive, and we're going to do everything we can within the constraints of the program. But then the last big question is, what other issues are there in this watershed that could potentially be addressed? You know, this is a great opportunity. If there are projects that fit within this area and the general scope of what we're doing, we may be able to efficiently address them now. So if there are other ideas, leave us a comment and let us know.
Thanks, Jenna. So there was one question so far, and I think that's helpful to address it here in the schedule, but regarding, oh, I went too far, funding, that because the video was a little choppy. So the funding comes in, there's 3 different phases to this Plan EA. This phase, the scoping, the Plan EA, the development of or going through the Nepa process has been funded. Then the next phase is design. That's to be funded. There needs to be, and I'm not sure, Jenna, at what point you can apply for that funding, and then construction is to be determined as well.
Yeah, so we can request the design funding once we've published that draft EA. So even though the NEPA won't be done, once we've got the draft EA in, we can request the design funding.
Okay, so hopefully that answers that question. If not, let us know. So as far as scoping, the team's done a great job of kind of lining out what the program is, what is proposed, and then the process that we're going through. Because we are in scoping, we would like to receive comments now through April 9th. Comments that come after that will still be considered. They just won't be part of that public record. We take comments through the email. You can email them directly to email@utahcountywatershed.com. You can go to the website that we viewed earlier and put comments in that way. And you can call us, and we can also help you address any questions or concerns that you might have and connect you to these various members of the team. You can also put a letter in the mail. We do just ask that you put it in and have it postmarked by April 9th as well. This meeting is being recorded. We'll have this posted as well as that presentation posted so that you can go back and refer to this presentation and the material, or share it with someone that you think might have input as well that could help the team inform issues as they go forward. So with that, that concludes our presentation. I wanted to turn the time over to those of you that are attending to put over questions over into the chat that you would like. You have our team available here, ready and willing to address any questions that you might have. So that is the time that we're at now, and we will answer those as best we can. If there's information that we don't have, we can always do some investigation and get back to you. So, and I haven't seen any come back through, Jennifer, so far. You also could feel free to raise your hand on your video and ask the question that way, because we don't have too large of an audience here tonight. The chat feature is just for any of you that might be wondering where that's at. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little menu down there. There's a little, chat bubble there. You can click on that and that'll give you the option to send your question over that way. So we'll just endure a little bit of the silence. Are there I'll turn the time over to our team members on any items that you might want more information on or to fill in. It sounds like, Ted, you can expand on where the drainage might flow through Loafer Canyon. You want to do that now?
Sure, yeah. So as part of the EWP project, the original plan there, Loafer Canyon kind of all slopes to one direction, mostly I would say westerly. And so the water, the idea was to collect some of the water, we'll say above the houses. It's above the school bus turnaround for those that know where that's at. The city bought some property up there. And if you go up there now, you'll see some silt fencing on it. That was done as part of the EWP. The idea was to collect some water there, slow it down, get some debris out of it. And then since the previous EWP attempted to get the water down behind the houses on the low side of the canyon, required going through quite a bit of private property. Since that was not an option that we were able to pursue, we thought about in this project seeing if there's something we can do in the public road right away to convey the water in a public facility that would collect that drainage water and then take it down to the canyon. And then on the corner, for those of you familiar with the area of Loafer Canyon Road and 11200, there is part of this project. We'll also be evaluating a basin on some property down there to capture that water. And for those of you, I don't know if anybody in the phone calls from that area, but as you recall, I think it was a year or so, a little over a year ago, there was quite a large flood event that came down the canyon there post the fires, and we're attempting to try and alleviate that with this project.
Ted, on this item, we had a question about, is there more detail on the public land on Loafer Canyon?
And I'll say right now, we don't have any more detail. We will be getting more information and detail as the project continues to develop. But, you know, and if you're speaking specifically to the conveyance, I think would have to go in the public road right away, Loafer Canyon Road right away, to avoid private properties, because there's private properties on both sides of the road.
And not necessarily any federal land in that area, or?
Not that we're aware of. I don't think there's any federal lands this far down the canyon.
Okay, so Amber, if you would like more detail on that, let me know. There was also another question about, there not being a lot of detail to the projects that have been described. So when we would see more of that. Again, this is scoping, so we have the need identified and the goals, and then concepts. And the point of scoping is to inform and come up with more details on what those projects could look like. Sometimes there are multiple alternatives that are evaluated in this process. So either Ted or Jenna or Ahmed, do you want to speak more to that, what folks would see when we go through this process and get into the draft EA?
Sure, and Jenna can correct me when I misspeak here, but as we develop these projects through the scoping period, throughout the Plan EA process over the next year or so, part of that we will be developing preliminary design of the projects, and those will be included in the draft EA that will be available, as we talked about there in the timeline. And I believe we have at that point, that draft EA will become available to the public, and we have another public meeting. And so the public will have a better idea at that point what the proposed measures are and a little more detailed information.
Yeah, and just to add, when we do have that draft EA published and we ask for comments again, substantive comments have to be addressed. So it's not just that we take your comments and say, okay, thanks, we're doing what we said anyway. We do have to actually respond to them and take them into consideration. And it's really our responsibility to make sure that we're designing well from the beginning. So again, if there are concerns that we know of now, let us know and we can build that into the design so that when you get that draft EA, you can see that we've already addressed it and you don't have to make the comment at that later stage.
So, and if I may add here, yes, please use that website or any of the communication methods that Diane had indicated. That would help the design team significantly as we go through the alternatives. This is only, penciled in proposed projects. Purpose of this meeting here and this public comment period is to gather as much input as possible to include or to consider in the design process within the project guidelines. So your feedback and input is highly appreciated at this point.
Okay, thank you for addressing that. I would say too, we're always happy to come and bring various team members to walk people through, what might things look like on the site or to meet to gather that information. So, and I can do that because I'm volunteering other people to go and help answer your questions. So that is an offer from our team as well. And that's what we're here to do. Anything, Derek, do you have anything that you wanted to add? Okay.
No, just wanted to speak to the fact that we had the agency meeting, had good involvement there. Folks are on board and we'll have regular occurring meetings with those agency groups. And then that, again, that smaller stakeholder meeting. So this is our third outreach effort on this project, and the project team has been doing a great job. So that's all I've got. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Derek. Anyone want to raise their hand on screen and ask a question of our team, or have we sufficiently addressed any initial questions? Okay. Well, I will give you all anything as far as the presentation, again, will be available online. And I'll have Jennifer put that contact information in this chat as well. So you can reference that. It also is on that flyer if you received that. If you would like to continue to be involved, you can even just shoot us an email, and then as updates become available, we can include you in any of that communication. So Jennifer's put that information in the chat. Our team will linger until 6:30 to answer any questions that folks may have if you want to stick around. Otherwise, that does conclude our formal presentation and question and answer for this public scoping meeting. So thank you again for your time. Thank you to all of our team members and our sponsor and co-sponsor for helping walk through this and for taking the lead on these items. And again, we appreciate your time, and we will look forward to being in touch with you throughout the rest of this process. So have a good night, everyone. And our team will stick around until 6:30 if you want to talk with us that way. And thanks for Ahmed's giving a little tutorial on the UC Watershed site. So
yeah, I was just making sure that you guys can see, and there's a little bit of a mapping instructions here just in case. You can zoom in and put a point in and put your comments. Make sure you hit submit. That way we can get these comments.
awesome, thank you.
And these comments we do look at, so the team does look at it.
Yes. We've got a few people lingering. Any questions from those still on the call? Okay. You can feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question. You don't need to use the chat. All right. Well, anything else from our team? And we can, if we're not getting any more questions, then we can just end this a few minutes early, which no one ever complains about a meeting ending early, right?
Especially on a Thursday night.
Travis is ready for the weekend. So, oh, maybe he already got onto his weekend. So good for him. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for your time and all your efforts. And we will get this recording up online for all your viewing pleasure, and follow up with everyone when we get through this scoping period. Okay. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Diane.
Thanks,
Dan.
Diane.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.